Is my hair
It looks good. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, you're looking good.
I don't know. Look okay.
Okay. All right. AO.
Welcome to your Everyday Rich podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Jason. Appreciate you joining on to this episode. There are more topics that we're talking about that are becoming more important to us. You know, obviously, like money is always a big thing. And sometimes it wraps around stuff like, you know, career advice and kind of career discussions.
Yeah, it's a big part of your life. I spend a lot of time there.
Yeah. And, you know, granted, I think as you go through your career, go through your life, you're obviously, you know, spending a lot of time at work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of energy put into that. And, you know, if you've gone down the Kool-Aid of entrepreneurship, which I think a lot of people should, or at least explore, you know, side hustles, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you don't even know it if you're having a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
You come to realize that, like, you know, having a job isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, although having a job also, you know, can restrict what your earning potential, I think, in my opinion. However, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't leverage your job, your 9 to 5, to its full potential as you kind of figure stuff out outside. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we were chatting about some topics about, you know, stay-at-home moms and, you know, being off on maternity leave. And then it got to this whole thing about like women and their careers, right?
Yep.
Remember?
Yep.
And then we're just like, you know, at some point we kind of did this math, and we chatted about this at another episode where it was like, what was the math? We were chatting about like,
The cost of children.
the cost of children, but also like, okay, at what point did it make financial sense to get a nanny, right, versus
Mm-hmm.
daycare,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we talked about it was something like 3, right?
3, yeah, around 3 kids.
And we know we have friends that have nannies, that don't have 3 kids, and they have 3 kids or plus. They have nannies.
Mhm.
And for them, it just makes sense because they're 2 busy parents fully entrenched in high performing careers, like
It's a time thing.
high demanding careers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then also, we also know that, you know, as you go on maternity leave in Canada, it's up to 18 months now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a big burden. And at some point during your mat leave, you either might get bored out of your mind, or you actually might really start enjoying it.
Yeah. Can go both ways.
But then that whole thing about like, okay, if you were to go on mat leave and this argument about not returning to the workforce, like to become a full-time caregiver.
Well, yeah, it's a financial, if you just look at it from, forget about whether you enjoy it or not.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it from just a strictly financial standpoint, is it makes sense? Because let's say you were to go back to work.
Like from a career standpoint?
No, financial standpoint.
Okay.
So you do your mat leave, and then after 12 months or 18 months, whatever you guys decide to choose, you go back to work. But now you got to pay for daycare.
Mm-hmm.
So does it financially make sense when the money you earn, and depending on, again, highly dependent on your actual salary, but like a portion and potentially a large portion of your salary is going toward childcare. So it's like money in the bank and then money out the bank.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm working 8 hours a day for all of it to be taken by the daycare person, right? So does it financially make sense in your situation?
Yeah.
And I think that's a question, right? Like a lot of people will ask that.
We've had these questions posed to us with other friends that we've chatted with. It was just like, well, why would we even go back to work?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's literally like, obviously depending on your income, right? What you make.
Yeah.
Because childcare is fixed, obviously.
Yep.
It's not like you can negotiate. Hey, you know what? Mm-hmm. Like if I come more, can you give me a bulk discount?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I wish.
Sometimes they work something out, but it's really small.
Mm-hmm.
But like realistically, like, yeah, for some people, you're capped at a certain income based on your situation,
mm-hmm.
based on your career, your job, where you are, the industry you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of, you're like, well, I don't have a choice. I have to pay this money, but I only make this
X
much
dollars.
X
Yeah.
dollars, right? So yeah, like you're right, Jen. Like I mean, that conversation was like, okay, well, does it make sense for me to even keep working?
Yeah.
And I want to caveat this, right, and give some context. So obviously, we're millennial Asians, CBCs, Canadian. Well, I'm Canadian born Chinese. Jen is a
Close to Canadian
close
born
to Canadian
Chinese.
born Chinese. But anyways, we grew up in households for my in my when I grew up, my mom worked a few years in corporate. And then at some point, like both my parents made the decision to say, hey, you know what? My mom could quit her job and stay at home to become a full time stay at home mom,
Mhm.
right? And I hate that title, stay at home mom. It's like there's obviously another term, right? Um, but I was thinking, okay, well, although my mom, in my opinion, she's probably had the most amazing experience to be able to raise kids like that in a
Mhm.
capacity where you see them every day. You don't realize that, right? But it
Mhm.
becomes such a big part. And then at some point, I was thinking, well, what happens if my dad lost his job or my dad passed away,
Mhm.
right? Or something
Mhm.
where that single source of income all of a sudden disappeared. And my mom had this big gap in employment,
Mhm.
and not just employment, but not being exposed to the workforce. You lose touch with certain things like soft skills. I hate this, soft skills, like
Yeah.
the daily interaction. You forget how to, like, what the water cooler talk is all
Yeah.
about, and little time
Technology.
technology. Yeah.
Right.
So you lose out on these skills that you learn day to day.
Mhm.
What would have happened to my mom? I don't even know. I have no idea. Right. So it goes back to, like, for us, that conversation, right, Jen? Remember
Yeah.
we posed it. It was like, Jen, would you, as a woman in a demanding career, not, I'm gonna caveat, not just a job. Don't get me wrong. This is no disrespect to people that have, like, clock in, clock out jobs, because we all have different personalities, right?
Mhm.
But like, you're in a career, right?
Yeah.
And would you? What was that decision like? Why did we consider saying not go to, like, you would never consider just fully quitting?
I think it just depends on, like you said, is it a job or is it a career? Like if it really means a lot to you and it's something that you're proud of, it's something that is yours, it's your thing, then yeah, I would. And that's why I chose to continue my career as a working mom versus, quitting and being a stay-at-home mom, because that's something I'm proud of, right? It's something that I want to do,
Mhm.
right? Versus, you know, I guess just being a stay-at-home mom is just not my thing.
What is it? Is it, do you feel like because there's not enough of a challenge, or there's like this kind of almost like a purpose built into it?
Yeah, like a purpose. Like especially when the kids are in school, it's like what am I going to do for the 6 hours at home? That's just me though. I'm sure like some people can find things to do, I guess, but for me I just couldn't figure out what I was going to do for 6 hours at home. So for me it's like I'd rather go to work and do something, productive with my brain, to keep myself going.
Yeah, and we also had this discussion where, it was this thing where if you take an extended time off and there's a gap in your employment, every employer is going to kind of wonder, like, yo,
What
what's
do you
going
do?
on? What'd you
Mm-hmm.
do? What happened? Right. And me personally, if I'm hiring someone and I'm looking at someone, especially in this day and age where it's so competitive, right? And there's technology that is threatening jobs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they can do it more efficiently. And obviously, overseas, the whole work from home, I can hire people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So to have that gap, and, if there wasn't really anything that was productively done, I'm going to say,
It puts that person at disadvantage.
it sure does. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it does, right?
Yeah.
And that was that whole angle where I remember talking to you about this was, although you may consider from a financial impact, yeah, it's a net it's a net
Net zero,
zero.
or maybe close to net zero. I
Yeah,
don't know.
close to net zero in terms of your bank account. But there are these intangibles from
Working.
your career, your
Yeah.
personal life that actually I think would be taken away from you, or you'd be put at a larger disadvantage. Like you're kind of putting yourself into a hole, so to say, because it'd be very hard for you to get back into the workforce if you needed to.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on what you're doing at home as well, though, right? I've seen stay at home moms where, yeah, they're taking care of their kids, but when their kids are in school, they're also doing something else. You know what I'm saying? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's like starting a side hustle
Yep.
or like doing something that can get them a little bit of income.
Yeah.
But they might not be working a 9 to 5 per se, but they're doing something that generates income.
Yeah.
And I think that is almost like, because then you become like a stay-at-home mom slash entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know, it's not a bad thing.
I think it's a cool thing. Like,
Yeah, if you have the
listen,
opportunity.
entrepreneurship is glorified now, right? And if you were to ask me if I were to become a stay-at-home dad, I'd be bored shitless out of my mind. Like, I would have to do something.
Yeah, you'd be a slash entrepreneur.
Yeah, because ultimately, like, what's going to fuel, I think, your everyday rich is a curiosity to
Mm-hmm.
like explore and do better. And really, like, don't get me wrong, like, wouldn't you want to pad your bank account a little bit so that you could enjoy some of these things, like
Yeah.
that you'll need to eventually pay for
Mm-hmm.
as your kids get older?
I think even nowadays times have changed as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we think about stay-at-home moms maybe like 20, 30 years ago, there was no online business.
The technology didn't exist. The
Technology
platforms
exists.
didn't exist for them to do that. Yeah.
Correct. So, how would you become a stay-at-home mom slash entrepreneur 20, 30 years ago? I mean, there are opportunities,
Yeah, there's
but
tons
it's
still.
it's not this not the amount of opportunities, not as much as it is today, I think.
I don't know if the opportunities are more. It seems like they're more, but I just think the barriers to entry are lower,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because of the internet, because of applications, because of the ease of these tools that we have at our fingertips,
Mm-hmm.
we're able to enter a lot of markets
Mm-hmm.
a lot easier,
Yeah.
right? You don't have a challenge of like, oh, you know what? I want to start a brick and mortar store to sell
Stuff, something.
stuff. I don't know, my cookies. I had to, like, the traditional bakery, that whole story about, like,
Yeah.
the person that loves baking, you know,
Mm-hmm.
starts a bakery, wakes up at 5 a.m., and then over a couple years realizes, oh shit, the thing that I actually love, I don't love because the whole process of doing it is tedious,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're doing it for a different purpose now. Yeah, like tools make it easier now.
Yeah.
So I guess when it comes down to it, it's just one of those, like, what do you want to do? Like, what's going to fulfill you ultimately,
Yeah.
right? If obviously your concern is, hey, you know what, I want to save a few bucks, right? Then that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I think we're all wired like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, being Asian, man, I want to squeeze every single
For sure.
dollar out of that coin. But really, also, like, for yourself, from a personal development, are you okay with giving everything up that
Mm-hmm.
you worked for
Mm-hmm.
because of your kids? And
I
oh,
think it's really important that, and I know a lot of moms struggle with this,
yeah.
is yeah, when you become a mom, it takes up so much of your life, so much of your brain,
Mm-hmm.
so much of just everything, right? It just takes so much from you, so that when after that first year, it's really important for moms to be not just a mom, right? Whether it's your career, whether it's, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is, right? Like, you're not just a mom, right? So whatever it is, your purpose, yes, the mom fills like a huge part of that, but there is another purpose for yourself. There's something else as well,
I couldn't say it any better.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it starts with why, right? Simon Simniak. What's his name? Simon
Sinek.
Sinek? Simon Sinek?
I think it's Sinek.
Yes, I could murder that name. Sorry, man. Sorry, Simon.
But
yeah, no, you're right, man. Like, and I would always encourage everyone to. It's like, you're not defined by just one label.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we navigate these like really wacky norms as immigrant raised Asian kids in a North American white society, which we're trying to conform around that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously now with all these different cultures that have come into Canada and people becoming a bit more open and understanding to cultures,
mm-hmm.
these perspectives change. And the label of saying, oh, like, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom you should never be restricted to that, because how we look at ourselves, really defines what we potentially can do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That whole mindset piece of like, well, if I only see myself in the mirror as this person,
then you'll be that person. Mm-hmm.
And it really is about, no, what do I want to be? What can I be? And really, it can be anything you want.
Yeah.
Right. And I really want to just mention this is like, shout out to all our friends, family, people that, we've chatted with before and maybe we haven't connected with in a long time, but I can guarantee you, like, I'll tell you right now, I see you doing your thing, whether it's on social media or whether when we get together
mm-hmm.
and we talk. And even though you may think what you're doing is small in comparison to this whole social media game of like flaunting this perfect life, what you're doing is amazing. So do not second guess and do not doubt yourself on the things you are putting together right now because you're trying to compare to someone else. Like, seriously, I do just want to say, I clap for people to win, even though they may not clap for me to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to tell you up right now, I'm clapping for everyone that's listening here. Right? If you're my friend, if you're not my friend, I'm still clapping for you. Like, this whole point, like, never put yourself within a box, because it's like, that's the ultimate self-sabotage.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but
that's a good ending.
Yeah, I think that is a good ending. Let's put the lid on this box. But yeah, that was kind of our living room conversation where we were just chatting about this whole concept of like, women in the workforce and what, obviously, if you were to quit, right, Jen? And
what would happen?
What would happen, right? And what's the different perspectives? Because we've heard it from many, many different sides. And
yeah.
We want you to have these conversations so that, it can empower you to make decisions, whether it's financially or even just from a mindset perspective, to put you in the right position or a position to, I don't know, live that whole everyday rich. So, I don't know. Anyways, you found it enlightening. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, well, if you didn't like it, just DM Jen, let her know. If you liked it, DM me. But help us pay the fee, and share this, like it, subscribe, so that these conversations can be spread to more and more people just like us. Because ultimately, like, that's the whole point, right?
Whole point.
So, all right, man.
Alrighty.
That's long enough. Let's wrap up here.
All right, signing off.
All right.
See ya.
Anyways, peace. Bye-bye.
Your Everyday Rich podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. Any such information or other material should not be construed as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a qualified professional.